Over the past month, Joe Flacco has been very good with the Cleveland Browns, and in today's video, I will go over all of the other teams that should have signed him first. Before I get into the teams, I'll just kind of go over the Joe Flacco situation. He was just sitting at home doing nothing. Then on November 20th, the Cleveland Browns decided to sign him to the practice squad. And since then, Joe Flacco has gone 4-1. He has thrown for 13 touchdowns. And he has thrown for over 300 yards in his past 4 games. And how much does he cost? Almost nothing, just roughly $1 million per year. So of course a bunch of teams could have used him and should have signed him. The first bracket of teams that should have signed him are teams that would definitely be better, but I don't think would be playoff teams. They are the Raiders. They currently have Jimmy Garoppolo, but of course they haven't played him in a very long time because he's very bad. So they've been playing Aiden O'Connell / Brian Hoyer. It's not going good. It's not gone anywhere. They've already fired their head coach. Season's over. But if they had Joe Flacco, maybe they'd have an extra win or two. Up next, the Patriots. Their offense is abysmal. It's so bad. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL, which is tough to say about a Bill Belichick team. But I have to believe that Joe Flacco would be better than both Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones. Quite simple. Still not playoff team, but would be better. Up next, the Giants. The Giants have been playing Tommy DeVito. What else do I have to say? Then the final two are the Panthers, who of course they're not going to play him because they have a new number 1 overall pick quarterback, but he's been terrible all year. But his supporting cast is equally as bad. Even with Joe Flacco, they still might be the worst team in the league, but I think most people would agree they would be better. And then finally, the Washington Commanders. Their quarterback's been a bit of a mess this year. Sam Howell has impressed at times and has looked terrible in others. And I believe Joe Flacco would kind of steady the ship there. But those are just the teams that I think even with Joe Flacco would still miss the playoffs. Up next are the teams that I think with Joe Flacco would be better and would make the playoffs. And I have 6 teams other than the Browns on this list. And I'll rank them in order of who I think would be the best with Joe Flacco versus at the bottom, number 6, who would make the playoffs but not as large of an improvement. First off, the Atlanta Falcons. They have Kyle Pitts, who everyone talks about, even though hasn't done anything, so maybe I should not bring him up. They have Drake London, who is shown to be very good, and they have Bijan Robinson. Combine this with the solid defense, and with Joe Flacco, they would win the division hands down. I don't think this is controversial. I think it's just pretty simple fact. If they had a reasonably top half of the NFL level quarterback, they would win the NFC South. So without him, they're going to miss the playoffs. Up next is the Indianapolis Colts. I know Colts fans might be up in arms a bit because they probably will still make the playoffs as it is. Gardner Minshew has looked very good. He is an excellent backup. But if you compare the stats, Joe Flacco has simply been better. Gardner Minshew has played in 13 games and he has thrown for 14 touchdowns. Joe Flacco has played in 5 and has thrown for 13 touchdowns. Also, Joe Flacco's 4-1. Gardner Minshew is, roughly 500 on the year. So while Minshew has the style points for sure, I think the team would be improved with Flacco. Up next, the Cincinnati Bengals. So yes, I know that Browning has looked very good and everyone loves him and all of that. But everyone loves him compared to what they thought he would be, which was terrible. If you compare him to Joe Flacco, who has been good, then he's less impressive. He's played in 7 games, he has 8 touchdown passes. I mean, what else do you need from that? He has averaged about 226 yards per game. Joe Flacco averages about 300 yards per game. So I'm not saying that Jake Browning has been bad, but Joe Flacco with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, he could probably be a top 10 offense in the league with those weapons. So I have to say with that, they would be better with him. Up next, the New York Jets, the team everybody was thinking of this entire video because everyone wanted it to happen and it happened last year and he was impressive last year. So far this year, the Jets have played pretty much everyone on their roster and none of them have been good. They've mainly used Zach Wilson, who has shined at moments, but you know, he's been Zach Wilson. If Joe Flacco had these good weapons like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, who managed to get 1,000 receiving yards even on this pitiful offense, they would be for sure in the playoffs because they have a top 5 defense and the weapons to go around Joe Flacco. I would like to say that I think the Browns with Joe Flacco are better than the Jets would have been with Joe Flacco. The Browns are really good with Joe Flacco and could be scary in the playoffs. The Jets with Joe Flacco would make the playoffs for sure, in my opinion, but I don't think they would, go far in the playoffs. The Browns with Joe Flacco have a chance to go far. Up next, this team might be the most controversial that I think should have signed Joe Flacco a long time ago, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, I know, Kenny Pickett, he's in his second year. You have to give him a chance. They've had a decent record all year, but just look at the stats. I mean, Kenny Pickett has played in 12 games this year. He has 6 touchdown passes. To make things worse, Kenny Pickett over the past 2 seasons, he has played in 25 total games. He has 13 touchdown passes and 13 interceptions. Joe Flacco over the past 5 weeks has 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That's crazy. How is this guy so bad? And I know, Canada is a bad offensive coordinator, but maybe his quarterback was just terrible. And the Steelers will probably give him another chance next year. And I don't think it will work out at this point, because just looking at the stats, he's had 3 good games his entire career. He has touched 13 touchdowns over 2 years. I don't care who your offensive coordinator is, that is not good enough. He has good weapons. He has Deontay Johnson. He has Pickens. He has Freiermuth, however you say it. And he has a playmaking defense who sets them up in good opportunities all the time. Joe Flacco would be a huge improvement to the Steelers this year, and they could be a really good team if they just had a startable quarterback like Joe Flacco, who's willing to just sling the ball out to the wide receivers, he's willing to take chances, and will move the offense. But of course, the Steelers won't give up on him. The Steelers don't do crazy risk-taking moves. They're going to play Kenny Pickett next year, and who knows, maybe he'll improve, but he has not impressed me at all through 2 years, and I think Joe Flacco would be a better starting quarterback for this year's Steelers. And then finally, the last team that should have signed Joe Flacco is the Minnasota Vikings. They could be scary with Joe Flacco. The Vikings are currently 7-8, and they're right outside of the playoffs. They did just get Justin Jefferson back. They have TJ Hawkinson. They have a running game that's iffy, but they also have their really good rookie wide receiver, and their defense at times has been very good. If they had Joe Flacco with those wide receivers and that tight end, that would be a scary offense. Joe Flacco would he wouldn't care what's going on. He would just throw the ball to Justin Jefferson no matter what, and I think it would work out a lot of the time, and I believe they would have been able to win a playoff game with Joe Flacco. Without him, if they make the playoffs, they're just going to lose. So, thanks for watching my video. Which team should have signed Joe Flacco? Now, I'd like to say, of course, I think the Browns probably the best situation for him because of how elite their defense is, but all these other teams, it was just a wasted opportunity. So thanks for sticking around. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you later.